What a great way to start my day. People clapping for me. How's everybody doing this morning? Did we enjoy the keynote? Yeah? And what about last night? Did everyone attend the Reisman Awards? Get a chance to see some of the spotlights? Awesome. So we're going to spend the next hour-ish together talking about document automation between Clio Draft and Clio Manage. Now, this is the intermediate session. So if you are looking for, getting started, maybe you've touched templates, maybe you've just dabbled a little bit, maybe you've never used them at all, then this is the session for you. I want to start off with a thank you to some of our partners. We've got a ton of integration partners here at Clio. I'm sure that all of you have been in the expo hall and seen a ton of vendors around. We have hundreds of partners. Many of them can help you with things, like consulting with you to help get your templates built if this isn't something you want to do yourself, if you want to outsource that project, or if you're looking to, get some assistance with integrating other applications into the Clio system. Bit about me. As they said, my name is Tara. There's actually two Taras at Clio, so it gets pretty confusing. We both are Taras, not Taras. Both of our last names start with Kane. We get each other's messages all the time. I don't know if any of you have that problem in your office. We also have a bunch of people in our onboarding team. We've got like 5 Dans. So if you're over in customer success at all and you're looking for Dan, you really got to be more specific because it's not going to narrow it down. I started by working in law firms when I was 20. A year or so ago. And I was a paralegal. So graduated high school, wanted to be a lawyer. That's really expensive, so I went to school and became a paralegal. Moved from that into working specifically with technology because I wasn't a great paralegal. I would go into the lawyer's office and I'd be like, why are you doing it like that? Like, man, that is inefficient. Like, have you ever heard of a keyboard shortcut? Can we just put the mouse down for 2 seconds? Y'all don't appreciate that so much when someone starts telling you what to do who's 20 years old and fresh out of school. So instead, I moved into IT, and I worked in really large law firms, overseeing over the course of time, moving into manager positions where I oversaw teams of trainers, as well as help desk, and I would help the partners decide what type of software to purchase. So now I'm in a role at Clio as a customer success manager. So I moved to the other side. Now I know what it's like to be the customer, and now I'm the person that has to work with those customers, and I have a whole new appreciation for what I probably put those people through. The agenda today. This is an basic to intermediate session. So we're going to set the stage with understanding what is document automation, right? We're just going to keep it simple and get you guys started. Then we're going to have a conversation about what should you automate? Should you automate all of the things, all of the time? We're going to talk about that. How does document automation fit into the Clio ecosystem? Clio has a number of products now. I've been here for 9 years. I've seen many products get added over the course of the last 9 years. And how does this fit in? A little bit about Clio Manage, a whole lot about Clio Draft, and then we'll leave you with some next steps. And I'd like to say I was assigning you some homework, but we won't call it homework. I'm going to give you some suggestions for what you can take away and maybe get started when you get back to your office. Sound good? Okay. So document automation. Maybe with a show of hands, how many people here have created a template, added the fields, and automated a few things? I know a couple people in the room who've created quite a few. There's some hands. We got a mix. So document automation is essentially taking a document that you're going to use time and time again and adding fields to it so that you can auto-magically, as I'd like to say, pull in client and matter information into those fields and speed up that document creation process. It's not going to replace the need for you to proofread that, for you to review it, tweak it here and there, but it is going to get you a solid first draft. Okay? Benefits. We want to save time. How many people have thought, oh, I need to create a motion, I need to draft an argument, an engagement letter, and you're thinking, well, 6 months ago, a couple years ago, I created one, and it was really great, so I'm going to go find that one, and I'm going to do file save as, and then I'm going to start, hunting and pecking or finding and replacing and turning John Smith into Jane Doe or whatever the case is. Have you ever forgot to swap a name? Oh, that's terrifying. Yeah, exactly. So it is going to improve your accuracy. There's nothing worse than, creating that draft, maybe having your client review it or a colleague review it and realizing that you forgot to change a client name. That is not a good day, and no one wants to be there. And it's scalable. So rather than you having to remember when was the last time I created that really great document X, you'll already have that, nice repository of solid precedents, solid templates to pull upon. You will need to update them from time to time if regulations change, if rules change, but they're there and available for you to use over and over again, and also for everybody else on the team to use. If you've got a more junior associate or a brand new paralegal, maybe you don't know them. Maybe you're not sure what their work is like yet. At least if they're starting with your templates, you know that those are built the way that you want them to be built. Few examples. So I said at the beginning, should we automate all of the things, right? Maybe not everything. You can automate everything, but that's a bit overkill. So things that are high volume, standard forms, letters, agreements, things that have, a structure to them that are very repeatable and typically high volume, okay? Intake forms, engagement letters, contracts, that kind of stuff. Anything that's template-based. So think about court forms. Regardless of the state that you're in, regardless of whether you're in Canada, the US, you're someone that's traveled all the way here from another country overseas, anywhere you might be, there's going to be standardized ways that those court forms need to look in order to get filed and not rejected. So to ensure you meet that, you have those templates, they're set up exactly the right way, and then you can reuse them again and again. They need to be updated from time to time. So you'll see in Clio Draft a little bit later that we've got all those available to you. You can also create packages of documents. So think, a set of closing documents where you've got many, many documents that you need to build out. You need to put them all together, and you need to have that package ready at the same time. You want to think about all of the things you need, not just individual documents, one at a time. All practice areas? Technically. All practice areas can benefit from an intake form when you're getting to know the client that you're working with or you're learning about the file. But there are some practice areas that are particularly high volume. There's very rinse and repeat, right? Maybe you're fighting traffic tickets. Maybe you're, doing immigration forms, real estate. There's some practice areas where, quite obviously, you're using the same types of documents and forms over and over again. Although all practice areas will have some of that, some will have more than others. Let's talk a bit about the data. So I'm curious, has anybody heard the garbage in, garbage out? Right. So if you're using Clio Manage, how about this? Is there anyone in here that doesn't have Clio Manage? Yeah, I assumed that. What about Clio Grow? You don't have it or you do have it? You do have it. Yeah. Do not. Okay. So a lot of people have Grow. When you're taking your documents and your cases through those stages, you want to think about how you're capturing that data right from the time you're starting to use Clio Grow, moving the data into Manage. We're going to talk a bit more about that in just a second. And then taking that from Manage and moving it into Draft. So if you're looking at Clio Manage, which all of you have, we'll just level set on that one, I am pretty certain that all of you have custom fields. I see a lot of nods. So how you manage your custom fields is really going to impact how you build your templates, not just in Clio Manage, but also in a platform like Clio Draft, right? Are you using a pick list? Are you using a short form text, a long form text, a date field, dollar value field, right? How you're setting those up is really going to impact and have you thinking about how you're going to build those files later. If you're brand new to setting it all up, in a perfect world, you have a dedicated person, they're orchestrating it all, they're thinking about the big picture, but in real life, I think most people are like everyone in this room where you've already got Clio Manage, and then you want to start expanding on that and using more of what you already have, or considering adding products like Grow or maybe or Draft, or already have added Draft, right? So think about how you've already collected your data. And then as time goes on, if you need to add more fields, if you're building field sets, just be thoughtful about how you're putting those together. So when we think about those three products, Clio Grow, Manage, and Draft, starting with Grow, you're dealing with that client intake. Clio Grow is really intended to be used before they're your client. You've got the prospect. You have that person that is gone to your website and maybe booked a consultation with you. Maybe you have an intake form and you're doing some initial gathering, like who are you? Are you married? Do you have kids? Depending on your area of law. So there's automation within Clio Grow to create that intake form, engagement letters, those types of things. And you're already starting to collect the data there. And then they're deciding, are you a good fit for them? Do they want to hire you? And you're deciding, are they a good client for you? Are they going to pay your bills? Are they looking for work in an area that you practice in? And you decide, okay, we're going to work together. So you convert that into your Clio Manage environment, and now they've become a client. And when you have that client get created within Clio Manage with their first matter, you've got that data that you collected in Grow moving over into Manage. Now that it's in Manage, you're probably going to learn even more, right? You're going to get more details about them. You're going to start capturing some of that within custom fields. Perhaps you're going to start dabbling in the document automation within Manage. So document automation and Manage, it works great. You can do some conditional logic using some, formatting within Microsoft Word if you're really comfortable there. But it's not intentionally built to be a document automation tool. It has it, but that's not its main purpose. So I like to think of Clio Manage as a good fit for things that are simple. You're just getting started. You're not sure, like maybe I'm playing around with it a little bit. Once you're bought in and you realize how much time can be saved, that's when you really want to do something like Clio Draft. So Clio Draft is going to kick that up a notch. You've got the ability to do conditional logic. You can also generate sets of documents. You're not stuck just doing one affidavit at a time or one document as part of a set of closing documents. With Clio Draft, you can handle a lot higher volume and you can do a lot more things with conditions. How many people attended the conversation yesterday on the Legal Trends Report? A few? Not a lot? You're going to want to catch the recording. Joshua Lennon always does a great job every year explaining the Legal Trends Report. In case you don't know, we actually produce 3 of those every year. The one that comes out at ClioCon that he's speaking to right now is the state of legal overall. We also have one dedicated to small firms and one dedicated to medium-large firms. So according to that Legal Trends Report, 28% of firms that are considered growing are using document automation tools. Now, I can't prove it, but I think there might be, some correlation there that, if you're a fast-growing firm, you're trying to do more with less, document automation is going to be a good support for that. Okay, let's get into Clio Draft a little bit deeper. So when we're considering Clio Draft, I'm kind of curious at first, how many people here already have Draft? Do you already have Draft? Third third to a half of the room. For the rest of you, are you considering draft? Are you draft curious? That's why you're here? Yeah? Okay. Ah. Brand spanking new, haven't started using it yet. Perfect. So let's take a look. So Clio Draft differs from Manage in that it is intentionally built to be used to generate documents. It is a dedicated document automation tool. Unlike Clio Manage, unlike Clio Grow. So although they have document automation, they were not purposely built to be a document automation tool, whereas Clio Draft, that's its bread and butter. That is exactly what it does, okay? So it is simple, just like all of our other products. I think they're pretty user-friendly. You know, if I tell somebody where are your clients in Clio Manage, you're gonna click on contacts, right? You want your bills, you go to bills, pretty straightforward. Clio Draft is gonna be the same way. It's also cloud-based, and it's gonna keep everything centralized in one location. So rather than, you know, having people having to go look through Manage to find the templates and understand, okay, well, I've just got this long list of templates available to me. If you're a firm that's already created a couple hundred, I know there's at least one in the room that I'm familiar with. This is giving you the ability to organize them a little bit neatly, a little bit nicer, and keep them all centralized within Draft. So up at the top, you can see that you've got the different categories available to you, and then you've got the navigation bar down the side, very much like Clio Manage, very much like Clio Draft. They start to look pretty familiar. In Clio Draft, you have the ability to create and use the fillable PDF forms. So in here, if we were to go to court forms, we cover court forms across all 50 states. So if you are someone that relies heavily on that and you are tired of them sending you updates every week, every day, every month, and then you have to go update all your things, or you go pull that great precedent you had from 6 months or 2 years ago, and then you're wondering if it's current, there's some risk there. With these, they're always up to date all the time because we make sure that that's the case. You can automatically populate your party information because you have most of that sitting within Clio Manage, and you're going to integrate that with Draft. And it makes it easy for you to collaborate across your entire team. You know everybody's using the correct documents. It also comes with a Microsoft Word add-in for building your own templates. So if you don't typically use a lot of court forms, or maybe you do use court forms, but you also want the option and flexibility of building your own things. Maybe you like your engagement letters to look a particular way, and maybe you want to add some conditional logic to those engagement letters where you're pulling in, you know, oh, this is on this type of case, I want this type of information, I want this blurb over here, that kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff that you can create with your own templates using the MS Word add-in. So held within Clio Draft, you've got the section for your Word templates. And again, provided your template is correct, then you're not going to have those errors. You're not going to run the risk of saying, oh, I left John Doe in there instead of updating it to Jane Doe. Because there's no client names in it. They're fields. Okay. Sets of documents. This one I think is really powerful. So when you're using Clio Manage, of course you can create document automation, but you're only creating one at a time, which is fine if that's all you need. But with Draft, you can create a set of documents. You can put up to 20 documents within that set. And then when you run it, you can have it, well, there's my video. You can have it generate all up to 20 files at once. So maybe you have a set of closing documents, or you're doing a real estate closing, a purchase, a sale, you know, something like that, where you're probably generating a bunch of stuff at once. Again, you don't want to do them one at a time. You want to make it more efficient, and you can create them all at the same time. Questionnaires is also available. So although you can integrate Clio Draft with your Clio Manage environment and pull information over, so I'll talk about that in a bit, you can also collect additional information by using questionnaires within Draft. So maybe there is additional supplementary info you need to collect from the client and you don't have it already. You can use a questionnaire to collect that from them, and then it gets saved back into Clio Draft so that you can use it within your documents. And if we go into edit, you can see that it's listing out the types of questions, some examples, and then you can build that out into a document. Okay, speaking about Manage and what we can pull across. So within Clio Draft, if you're using it and you also have Clio Manage, you're going to want to integrate the two of them together. It's going to pull your client and matter information into Draft. So you'll know, John Smith has matter A, B, C, D, E, for example. You're also going to be able to pull in some of the custom field information. I am saying some. There's not all fields will sync over. And you can, when you create a document within Clio Draft, automatically, if you choose to, save that document back into Manage. So you've got your client information in Manage. You have that available within Draft. You generate your documents. The documents are there. And if you want to, you can save those back into the documents within Clio Manage to keep everything within the document files on the case. Okay? I will mention at this point, with Clio Draft, you may not need everybody to have it, right? You can, but because you can save those documents back into Manage, you could provide Draft to the people that are producing the documents, getting that first draft done. No pun intended. Realize I just said that. However, when you save, they could create those first drafts. They could save those back to Manage. Now everyone can access them because they're saved to the file, and then they can continue to go from there. And as you can see, for those Seinfeld fans, we have Vandelay Industries that's going to come and hang out with us today. I'm glad there's at least a few people who are old enough to remember Seinfeld, because I'm sure there's at least one in here that hasn't seen it. Okay, so Clio Draft does give you a nice, easy-to-follow journey. So it is self-guided. It's really easy to follow. Everything is standardized. You can have short-form text, long-form text. You can collect additional details from your client. You can save those back into Draft, and then continue to build your files from there. As you can see, we've got all of the basic information in here, and then we can add more if we need it. So the other thing that you can do in Clio Draft is you can review your work. So as you're building out your templates with some document automation systems, you're building a template, and in order for you to see whether or not that is actually going to generate the right result, you need to generate it and see it and go, no, that's got a mistake. And then you go back, and then you edit it, and then you upload it again, and then you generate it again. And oh, there's still a mistake, right? This has the ability to preview it, so you can kind of check on the fly as you go to see how things are going. So when you're using Clio Manage and Clio Draft, you want to think about planning things through. You want to think about how you're collecting the data. You want to think about how you're storing the data. And then you want to think about how you can be the most efficient with building those documents and putting together the sets of documents. You want to think about the whole process from start to finish, not just individual files. When it comes to the information that's going to come from Manage, it is going to sync over all of your contacts. It's going to sync over all of your matters. And it's also going to sync over the custom fields related to contacts and the custom fields related to matters. Talk more about that in a second. And any related contacts that you might have. So related contacts might be, the husband might be your client, the wife is the spouse, and maybe you've created the wife as a contact within Clio Manage and related that to the file. Maybe you have an investigator that's a related contact, or an adjuster, or something like that. So when you're looking at fields, just a couple of examples, Contact custom fields. I have seen people time and again create custom fields kind of in the wrong spot. Think of contact custom fields as things that belong to the person. So, someone's social security number, for example, or their birthday, that stays with them no matter what case you're working on for them. You might do a will for them, maybe you do a power of attorney, maybe you do a divorce, whatever. But that information is always going to be the same and it's going to stick with the person. So that's a contact custom field. Whereas the matter custom field is something that's unique and specific to that particular case. So the jurisdiction of the court for that situation, just as an example. Related contacts, maybe you have the children, the judge, that kind of thing. So when you're building out your template, you're going to have, you can see here on the screen, we've got the Microsoft Word add-in sitting over there on the left-hand side, and it's got a bunch of fields. And we're going to use those fields to replace the sections of our document that are going to have the client and matter-specific information. So instead of having John Doe, we would have, client full name, for example. When we're creating the templates, let's talk about that. So creating templates from scratch, you're going to generally be using the Microsoft Word add-in. It is a dedicated add-in. It's a button that you'll get on the ribbon within Microsoft Word. When you turn it on, you're going to see the section over there on the right-hand side. It is always a good idea to start simple. So if you've never created a template before, don't start with your most complicated contract or agreement. Maybe don't start with something that you think you're going to want conditional logic in. Start with something basic. Even if you have Clio Grow and you've got your engagement letters over there, maybe start with something like an engagement letter because it's pretty standard. You're probably going to use it on all your files. Start with something basic. Get your feet wet. Clio Draft has 3 kind of foundational things that you need to think about when you're building your templates. There's cards, there's fields, and there's conditions. So cards, if you take a look on the left-hand side, you can see there's a client card. Below it, I have client 2. Those are cards. On the card are fields. So we have a card called client. A field would be first name, last name, address, phone number. Pieces of information about that particular sort of group of grouping. Conditions, those are rules. So think about things like if-then statements. If this is completed, then do that. If this equals this, then do that. It's generally if this, then that. There's a session later today specifically on conditional formatting, and I'll call that out at the end. Looking at the cards in more detail, there are different types of cards. So there are role cards. So think about a role as the role of a person. So I've got, the card up at the very top is called principal. That is a role card. I've got full name, street address, etc. That is like a contact card. It's a person. Then there are other cards. The other cards are ones that I can create to be groupings of information, whatever I want. So in this particular example, I've got, power of attorney, general provisions. That is an other card that we created for the example. And that's grouping other fields that are all related to each other. You can create as many cards as you like. You can name them whatever you like. How you would create your cards and group your fields really depends on what you're looking to build. And I think you can start to see why the data that you're collecting is so important. The last one is a Clio Matter card. The Clio Matter card is where you're going to see your fields that are available from Clio Manage. So the information from Clio Manage that gets synced over into Clio Draft. Fields themselves, there's a few different types. We can do short form, long form, single text, multi-select, and date. So if we take a look over on the right-hand side, we can give our field a name, and then we have different types of fields that we can create, essentially. When it comes to conditions, I mentioned if this, then that. The other one that you can create is a standalone condition. So you can create a type of condition where it's asking you a question as you create the document. So for example, perhaps I have 3 different fee structures. Maybe I want, when I create my engagement letter, you're going to see it in a later example, for it to prompt me and say, is this hourly, is this flat fee, is this contingency, or whatever the case may be. And when it prompts me, I'm going to choose that directly within Clio Draft, and it's going to pull in the appropriate blurb, the appropriate paragraph. So those are standalone conditions that I can create right within here. The if this, then that would be things like, if there's a second client, then maybe I want to address this letter to John Doe and Jane Doe. If there isn't a second client, then it's just going to say John Doe, as an example. And you'd find conditions in the template builder there, just in the middle. Okay. Let's take a closer look at the Microsoft Word template builder itself. So we're starting with the document. We have an engagement letter. We've already stripped out the client and matter specific information. We've replaced it with some highlighted areas, and it's telling us what we need to insert, right? I need to insert the date of the fee agreement, the client full name, etc. Those are the fields that I need to put in. So I've already prepared it by removing any of that unique identifier information that I don't want to accidentally send to the wrong client, like we talked about before. Pretty straightforward. We've also got some in blue. That's that fee arrangement that I was talking about. So in our engagement letter, we're going to offer them 3 different options. So we're going to open up the template builder. So we're just going to click the button on the ribbon. Now, when we first start building the template, we're going to give this new template a name. And then what it's going to do, I'll wait for the video to get there, is it's going to go into Clio Draft, and it's going to pull in some initial information, some initial fields and cards. Lets us know that it's done. So next, now we've got this document. It's been saved to draft. We're going to start building it as a template. We need to start inserting those fields, creating those cards. So we're starting, and we're going to start by pulling in some information from another document. So maybe this isn't the first engagement letter we've built. Maybe we built one for another practice area. So we can start by going to that other template we have and pulling in the cards and the fields that we already have created from that other one, so we don't have to do this from scratch every single time. So we're going to pull this in from a different one. You can see it's just demonstrating it over there. So now I've got some information on the right-hand side. You can see I have Clio Matter. Remember the types of cards that I had before? I had roll cards. I also had the Clio Matter card where I can pull in my matter-specific information. So we're going to create a roll card. So we're going to start by doing new card. We'll choose the type that we want, which is a roll card. We'll give it a name, perhaps client. And then we're going to add the card. Now on that card, it's already going to understand that you probably want some basic information about a person, first name, last name, address, phone number, that kind of thing. It'll give you those default fields. Next, we perhaps want to add in some basic information into our file. So if I start the video, you're going to see that we're going to begin selecting those highlighted areas of text and replacing them with the fields. So where we've got, client full first name or client name, we're going to replace that with the field that says client full name. So we're just going to select it in the document and then choose to add the field. We'll do the same thing with the address and so on. So it's pretty straightforward. If you've created this before within Microsoft Word with Clio Manage, you'd probably remember going into Clio Manage, selecting, going through and selecting the type of field that you want, copying it, then going over to Manage and pasting it in. This is similar, except you just have to click Insert. Okay? Now, we can also insert fields based on information that we don't have yet, or we can pull them in from custom fields. So for this situation, we're going to scroll down and we can see that we want to put in the file number. So we're going to create an other card this time, and we're going to grab the matter information because we have that in a custom field. So that's that Clio matter type. And then we can grab the field, file ID, and then we're just going to put a prompt in here to remind us what we're doing. And when we've added it, we can now select the area within our document, and then we're going to be able to add that file ID field, just like we did with the first name, last name, etc. Okay. So before we keep going, maybe we want to check our work. Maybe we've never done this before and we're like, oh, did I do it right? What is it going to look like? So we can always go back into Clio Draft and check what we're doing. But there's one other thing that we want to add in here. We're going to add in the scope of the services. So in the engagement letter, where you get to that part where you're going to describe the work that you're about to do, we've just added a field that we're going to type directly in it to add that detail when we build the template. So in this one, it's going to ask us, is this estate planning? For this situation, we can add another one. We're basically adding a list. We'll add in the next one. And then we'll put the text in. One thing to mention is when you're putting text in here, however you type it is exactly what it's going to go in, what it's going to look like when it goes into your document. So if you use all caps, it's going in all caps. If you're using sentence case and so forth. So if you're generating your template and it doesn't appear correct, you might want to go back and consider how it was typed in. So we've created that multiple choice to give us 3 different options to determine the scope of the engagement letter. Now we've gone back to Clio Draft, and we want to check and see what it looks like. So we're going to go under Word templates because those are the ones that we built ourselves. I selected the one that we were working on, and now I'm previewing it. I can also choose to draft it. I can give that document a title. Now the title I'm putting in here is the result. And then I can choose the case. And now it's going to ask me some questions. So it knows some of the information because we've selected the relevant matter from Manage. But there's additional things like that scope of engagement where it's going to ask us each time because we set up those 3 options. And then we can get an idea of what it looks like. Would you like to see something new? Has anybody, heard of AI? Is that a thing? AI is a hot topic right now, and we have also integrated AI into Clio Draft. We now have an automated template builder within Clio Draft. So although what I just showed you was creating the basics of a basic Word template, we didn't do anything fancy. Basic letter, added some fields, right? Anytime we want to use it, it'll pull the data into those fields. We'll have our engagement letter. It'll be fine. if we have to create a whole bunch of templates because maybe we just bought Draft and we're just getting started, or maybe we've had Draft for a while and now we're like, oh, I should probably go back and build something. I've heard that happens. Oh, I hear laughing. Yeah, that's a thing. You can use the automated template builder. So I will talk about, if you already have Draft, I'll talk about how you can get access to this at the end. So we have a template. I should rephrase. We have a document that we'd like to turn into a template. This has still got our client-specific information in it. I haven't gone through and changed this into like client first name, client last name, anything like that. It's complaint for divorce. It's a document. This is one of those situations where I'm like, oh, I did a really good one 6 months ago. And in the past, I might have done a file save as and then hoped my find and replace was on point. So I can take that and instead I can open up Clio Draft. And over on the left-hand side of the screen there, you can notice we've got our AI icon that you'll see throughout many of our products now, the pretty diamond. And I can start by choosing Select Document. So I can go ahead and I can choose a document from Clio Manage, or I can upload a document off my computer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose something from Manage. And then we can click Create Template. Now, how long this takes is going to depend on a whole bunch of factors. The bigger the document, the longer it's going to take. I think that's pretty straightforward, right? If you're uploading an immigration form that is 35,000 pages long, like some immigration forms are, that's going to take a while. So be patient with it. It shouldn't be too long, but obviously the bigger the file, the longer it's going to take. Once it is done, we are going to be able to check it out. So over here in Microsoft Word, instead of us having that original complaint with all of the client-specific information in it, you can now see that it's stripped it of those details, and we have those kind of yellow highlighted areas that we're now going to create fields. We're going to insert fields for them. It will have tried to create some fields. We still need to look at this, right? We're never just going to assume the magical robot did everything for us and that it's perfect and we're just going to be able to leave it and move on our way. AI is a wonderful tool, but it isn't going to replace our ability to actually read something, review it, and make sure that it's accurate and correct. Okay. So instead of you having to go gather all of those documents that you're using as precedents, stripping them, we're going to take care of that part for you. And then at that point, you'd be able to use your template builder in Microsoft Word to create your cards, import cards from another document that you've already built, and put the fields in the file. A few things to think about with that automated template builder. I promise you it's going to save you a load of time. I have been someone who has had to administer a precedent system before, and it takes a massive amount of time to clean documents, make sure there's none of that old metadata sticking around with them. There's nothing worse than accidentally sending someone information about a different client. It's really bad. So it can save you a lot of time, but you want to think about its limits, right? It doesn't replace your ability to read it and make sure that it's correct and that nothing was missed. Please don't just assume that everything is perfect. You do want to read the result and take a look at it. It also has limits. So it's not going to be able to create for you conditional logic. It's not going to automatically create multiple choice fields. So like the engagement letter where we had the 3 choices of the fee arrangements, it's not going to be able to create those for you. It will handle some of those basic, repeatable things. The last one, and I'll say it again because I'm going to continue to harp on this, you have to look at it yourself, right? We're not just going to rely on the output and assume it's correct. We need a human to actually review and make sure it's what we want before we continue. Okay. Now, what about conditions? We're going to spend the next 10 minutes or so before we wrap up talking about adding those if-then statements and creating some conditions in your documents. We're going to keep it basic. I called it fancy, but it's still going to be basic. And as an example, let's just say in this particular document, I want to have 2 clients, right? And in this situation right now, it's assuming I only have 1. But what if there's 2? So I'm putting in, what would it look like if there was a second client, right? John and Jane, John Doe and John Smith, whatever the situation is. I'm not very creative in coming up with fake names, I realize. So I'm going through and I'm first adding in the second client's information. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to need to create a second card. I have a card for client 1 that we've just called client. I need to create another one for client 2. So you notice I just hit duplicate. I don't have to start from scratch. I'm just going to copy that existing card and I'm going to give it a different name. So I copied the card called client, named it client 2. It's all the same type of information, just for a second person. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing we did in the first example. I'm highlighting the section for where client 2 is going to go. So for example, client 2 prefix, client 2 first name, last name, etc. And I'm inserting that into my document so I can get the fields. Now I'm going to create a condition because I don't want a document that's going to say John Doe, and then if there is no second client, it would just say and client 2. Not going to help me out, right? So I need to create the condition. So over on the right, I'm going to go to the second option, which is conditions, and I'm going to create one. And I'm going to say based upon existing fields. So there's a couple of different types of conditions. I mentioned it earlier. For this one, if client 2 is not empty, then there's information in it, right? If it is empty, then there is no client 2. So we've created an if-then. So once I create that, now I need to add the condition to my document. So there we go. So in my document, I am going to select the area where client 2 is. So you can see it says client number 2. And then I'm adding the condition. It is going to end up putting in a bunch of extra space. You can always clean that up later. The important thing right now is getting the conditional field, the conditional logic into your document. So we're going to change the first area. We're going to clean up the extra space. We're also going to take it to the dear line and select the and client 2 prefix. So John and Jane Doe, for example, right? And then we'll add it in there. So we'll see it here. There's my video. Okay, so we're going to grab and client 2, and then we'll insert the same condition for that one because we need to know if there is or is not a client 2. Okay, so let's test it. Let's see what it looks like, right? Make sure we didn't mess anything up. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go under Word templates. We've selected our template. We're taking a peek at it. We're going to associate it with our Vandelay Industries. Not very creative. Every document is named example. That would be a problem in real life. Be specific with your document names. Pro tip, you want to come up with document naming conventions for your document management. So we can take a look at it and we can see what it looks like. So we can see it's Mr. and Mrs. Mandalay. We have all of our information in there. Okay. Now, if we go back and we test what will happen if there is no client 2. So if we remove the client 2 information so that it's empty, again, we just want to make sure that it works, right? We don't want to have this created and then send it off to someone who's very junior. Maybe we don't quite trust them yet. We want to make sure that the template does the work so that we're getting the right output. So we can see that it generated correctly. Okay, so that was pretty straightforward. We kept it simple. You can get a little bit more complicated with this. We can add multiple rules, so we're nesting them within each other. And we can also have additional operators with that. So for example, we can add a condition. You see, we had a greater than, a less than. There's all sorts of things that we can use. The other type of condition we can create is, we've got the if-then. We can also create the one that we were calling a standalone condition. So this is one that isn't based upon the result of information within a field. So it's not based on if this field says this or if this field is or is not empty. We're going to put this down in our area for fees. So we have a hybrid fee, an hourly fee, or a flat fee. And we only want one of these to appear in our engagement letter, not all 3 of them. And so what we're going to do is we are going to create a standalone condition with 3 options. We're going to ask a question. So what kind of case is this? And then we're going to make some choices. When we create the document, it's going to ask us the answer to the question. Obviously, based on that answer, it's going to pull in the appropriate blurb, the appropriate fee arrangement in this case. If this was an agreement, a contract, maybe you have different clauses, different situations, you can probably see how you would apply that. So you can provide the information that you want. So we're going to choose option 1, and that one's going to match over here. And then we have option 2 and option 3. So it has to we have to tell it what is the piece of information that you're inserting for each of the 3 choices that you've just made. Next, we had some extra space. We're just going to clean that up. We'll skip ahead. So let's go ahead and let's test our work. Again, remember we have potential for 1 client, multiple clients. We've also added in the blurb of the scope of our work, and we've also got our particular, our standalone condition for the type of fee arrangement that we're doing. So we're going to go to our template and we're going to preview it. We can take a look at it, make sure it looks okay so far. And then we can go ahead and we can draft the document. This time, we're not just choosing the type to insert the scope of engagement. We're also putting in the fee arrangement. We chose the first one, and it's going to generate that document. And if we go to that section, you can see it inserted the blurb for flat fee because that is what we chose. You'd want to go back and you'd want to test this for each of them. You don't want to just assume that they all work. So as you're building things, you want to pause and test as you go. Okay. So we can test the other options. We can make sure they're working. We can walk through those, but I think you get the idea. So if we kind of take a look back at what we've talked about. The main difference between Clio Draft and some of the other products is that it's intentionally built for document automation. I get asked all the time, well, why would I use Draft? I can automate stuff and manage. What do I need that for? It's a completely different platform. Its bread and butter is document automation. That is all it does. That is exactly what it's intended to do. And you can handle things like conditional logic in a much easier way than you can with Manage. With Manage, you need to understand how to program that within Microsoft Word because Manage is not going to help you. Manage, great for simple things. Grow, awesome for your pre-hiring, your client intake. You can do your engagement letters, your intake forms, that kind of thing. Once they're actually a client and you're producing like substantive documents, court forms, agreements, those types of things, that's where Draft really comes into play. We also have that AI-powered template builder. That is not an add-on that you have to purchase. That is part of Draft now. Everyone has it and gets it. If you were to get Draft today, you would have it. If you already have Draft, you will get it. It is just part of the platform. And lastly, it also comes with the Microsoft Word add-in so that you can build your own. So if you are in a practice area where you don't rely heavily on court forms, maybe those aren't for you. Maybe you're, when I was a paralegal, I worked in corporate commercial, right? In commercial lending, and we had all sorts of precedents. We had precedents coming out of everywhere, but they weren't court forms. We had our own precedent system. So this is the type of thing that we relied on. So what's next? My suggestion is that you go have some lunch. I'm starving. I don't know about you. You enjoy the rest of the day. If you don't have tickets to the wrap-up party tonight, I have no idea if there's any left. Before we even started yesterday morning, I heard they were almost sold out. So you might want to check by registration if you're interested. I think they have a wait list. I see the hand. I will answer your question. When you get back, I suggest that you start simple. If you've never created a template before, pick a couple really basic ones to get you started and play with them. If you don't have Draft and you want to just play around with this in Clio Manage, keep it simple, keep it basic. You have Draft, again, just start with something easy, don't make it hard, and then build from there. If you've already been building them for a little while, maybe take it to the next level. Try building a package. Add your conditions, preview, make sure it works, maybe run it through a few times yourself. Maybe if you're in a larger firm, maybe get 2 or 3 people to test it for you, work through it on their cases, get some buy-in, and then launch it to everyone. Conditional logic, today at 1 o'clock. That is with my friend Tanya. It's in this room. And then Clio Draft Power Hour. That one is at 1:45 with Brendan. That is also in this room. So if you're interested in going a little bit further, getting more information, those are 2 good ones. If you do not have Clio Draft, this is where you want to go. So if you're like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I want a demo. I'm curious. The Level Up area within the expo hall can give you a demo. If you already have Clio Draft and you're wondering when you get access to the AI-powered template building tool, you can go by the product lab and they can add you to a list to have that added into your account. Everyone will get it eventually. We usually roll things out in cohorts, so you can get yourself on the early access list. And lastly, if you have questions about anything building in Clio Manage, building in Draft, building in Grow, or anything else, over at the Success Center, they can definitely book an appointment with you. They still have some times left later today. I believe I'll be spending an hour in there later today taking appointments if you want to come hang out with me. And you can sit down and spend about 20 minutes getting into your individual question.